Welcome to Hot to Trot. This is not your normal horse racing podcast. I'm Ashley Eisenbiel.
And I'm Meadow Twaddle, and we're your hosts for Hot to Trot.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Hot to Trot. Today we have a special episode, as you can tell by our little fascinators going on. We are talking about the 151st Kentucky Derby, the most exciting 2 minutes in horse racing. I have some really special guests with us today. Of course, my co-host, Ashley Eisenbiel. She knows a thing or two about horse racing, so she's going to offer some good advice to you guys. I also have one of the sharpest voices in horse racing, Miss Jessica Paquette. She is the announcer at Parks Racing as well as a professional handicapper. And I also have Mr. Ed DeRosa. He is the vice president of content for Horse Racing Nation and also a professional handicapper. Ed, you have a very useful tool for people to use for the Derby. You have the SuperScreener. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that before we get started?
Sure. Yeah, that's Horse Racing Nation's sort of flagship product. And, you know, a lot of people may be squeamish about using picks or wanting to look at what a tout has to say. And what I like about SuperScreener is, it's more than picks. It analyzes the races. So it gives you a leg up if you're looking for that kind of information. But brass tacks, it gives you wagering strategy, kind of tells you how the race will unfold and whether a favorite is vulnerable or not. And as someone who does a lot of my own work, the way I use it is I'm looking for maybe that little boost of confidence for a horse to use in my trifecta or superfecta, or maybe the opposite. If I'm on the fence and SuperScreener says, look, this doesn't fit the profile of what happens in the Derby, you can't use them all in any race, especially the Derby if it's expensive. So I like just having that little sort of those pieces of advice that put you one direction or the other.
That's awesome. I'll definitely be checking that out.
Please do.
Pennsylvania has a lot of exciting things going on for the Derby. I know I'll be at the Meadows. Ashley will be at Penn National. Jessica will be at Parks. And Ed, you're going to be on site, right? At Churchill Downs?
Yeah, I'm here now, which this really doesn't tell you much about Churchill. But, it's first day of the week, Derby week, and looking forward to a lot of great racing. Horse of the Year on Oaks Day, the Oaks, of course, and then Derby Day on Saturday. Just a fantastic day of racing.
Ed, how's the weather panning out? That's a big factor for Friday and Saturday.
Weather's getting hit over the head with a frying pan right now, unfortunately. Forecasts look great until it didn't. Derby looks in the clear. They're saying the rain's going to move out by morning, but of course that means there will be rain the night before and maybe on Oaks Day. So we're hopeful it's scattered and doesn't stick around or misses us completely, but it's dicey right now.
All right, well, we'll make sure we keep an eye on the weather. I got Jessica here. They're going to be racing. It's going to be good weather for us here in PA. It looks like it.
It's beautiful here.
Thanks for mentioning.
On Saturday, we never jinx it because then on our big day, you never know what kind of weather we'll have.
That's right.
So rooting for good weather everywhere. We have 10 races here on Saturday, some big competitive fields. Post time for us is 12:40, so get here early, bet the Derby, hang around and watch our racing.
Yeah, and I'm excited for Saturday here because we're going to also be having the Smarty Jones Trophy exhibit. The reason why I'm here and not at my usual spot at home is because I'm helping set that up. So we're getting ready to have fans out to celebrate Smarty Jones getting in the Hall of Fame. Huge deal for us PA bred enthusiasts. He's a legend and super excited to debut his trophies here at Parks Racing on the main floor. So that will be opening this Saturday. So come out to Parks Racing and see it and listen to Jessica call those races.
It's definitely been a very exciting week for PA horse racing, but it's an exciting week for all of horse racing. Before we dive into the Derby itself, I kind of want to get a little information from you guys about your handicapping. And I want to talk about strategy. Jessica, I'll start with you. How do you compare handicapping a big race like the Derby compared to any other race that you handicap?
Well, I think if you take it as something separate from your normal handicapping, that sets you up to make some errors, really. Like, it's a big field. It's a very interesting race. It is still a race. It is still just a race. So I kind of apply some of the same principles that I apply to any of my handicapping when I'm handicapping the Derby. And I do like to go for long shots. I don't really invest a ton. So I look for the most bang for my buck. And occasionally, sometimes whether it's luck or being right, it pays off. I had a very large trifecta in the Derby a few years back when Country House moved up for the win. That was a 4-horse box that cost me $24. That paid about 11 grand. So, occasionally you can get lucky.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that if you treat this race as something else, that's where you're kind of forced to make a mistake. You would just want to look at it like another race. Ashley, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 20-horse field. Anything can happen. It's really anybody's race. I think it's definitely post position definitely plays a part for me in my pick. So waiting for that draw is a huge factor. I have horses I like to watch in the preps. I think, like Jessica said, those long shots are where it pays out. And that's where you want to make your money on that day. Ed?
I'll give a little fist bump to the favorites in the Derby, only because I think it's a rare race, maybe only the only race where a horse like Journalism is going to be 3-1. Now, granted, there's 20 horses. That's the reason why it's 3-1. But typically a horse with his resume will go into a Grade 1 race and be 4-5. So if you really like a horse, and I think for many, Smarty Jones would be a good example. He was 9-2. Undefeated Arkansas Derby winner, was 9-2 in the Kentucky Derby. You just don't get prices like that on horses you're really excited about. So for those who have a horse in the Derby, like a Smarty Jones or a Barbaro, maybe you think Journalism is that quality, you actually get a price for one. So I go into the race handicapping kind of like any other. I agree with that. Is the favorite legit or not? If yes, I go down one path in terms of how to bet the race. If no, then you really get excited because you might be in a position to win what Jessica did, which is much, much more than I've ever won on the Kentucky Derby. So
I've given it all back, I'm sure.
I now have a goal. I'd never want to pass, but I'd be happy with 10,900.
So I think that you make an interesting point, right? And this brings up the conversation of value and what is value. I think handicappers like to throw out that term a lot, but value is such a subjective thing to me. Like a horse at 31, you say that's a great value. It's only a great value if you think the horse has a chance.
That's right.
And a horse like Journalism at 3-1, if you think he's that good, that's a legitimate value. So I think value is not necessarily a short price or a large price sort of thing. It's what you're willing to take on that horse. And that's something kind of as a handicapper you need to develop yourself as where your principles lie.
Yeah, and the great thing with Derby is, let's say you don't like Journalism. Well, because we play a parimutuel game, if you think he is not worth 3-1, then there's a very good chance that some other horse is going to be worth whatever you think he should be. Because if 3-1's too short, someone else has to be too high. Which to me, the Derby is one of the few races of the year you can go into knowing whatever horse you really like, you're probably going to get your price.
Ashley, how do you balance the data and reading the lines of the horses versus your gut instinct? Does one ever kind of take over the other?
For the Derby, it's kind of like a gut instinct for me. With other races, I definitely lie heavily on that data, and I want to look at their speed numbers. I definitely play in a lot with the jockey and the trainer ratio and how well they do. I mean, we got Bob Baffert coming back after 3 years suspension, and with Mike Smith riding for him. There's the dynamic duo, the Triple Crown right there. Their data doesn't lie too. So, I'm a data girl at times, but with the Derby, I like instinct. Sometimes you just have a gut feeling that a horse is going to do well. And I mean, last year I really was rooting for Forever Young and the Japan horse. He had a great ride, but again, I'm excited to see the horse come from Japan. I think they're doing great things over there, and you don't get as much data here for that. So it's kind of like a gut instinct.
And watch replays, too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the important thing is that I go off of what I can see with my eyeballs. The data is very helpful, in the times when you can't. But in the age of technology that we have, so many replays are available. So if you invest the time and figure out, again, what value means to you, what do you like in a horse? What you like in a horse, what I like in a horse maybe isn't the same thing that Ed likes in a horse. And you find those things that appeal to you.
There's so much data in the Derby, and I think it's important and trends. It's the race most talked about in the U.S. a lot of people talk like the Wood Memorial hasn't had the winner of the Wood Memorial win the Derby since Fusaichi Pegasus, and then Funny Side was runner up and he won in 2003. To me, that's just happenstance. I mean, every year trainers are juggling their stock, so that would be like a trend that I don't pay attention to. But then other data like speed figures, certainly record at Churchill, things like that can be meaningful. So that's all part of the fun. But in terms of, heart or head, I do struggle with that in the Derby because we talk about these horses for weeks and you get attached, for lack of a better word, like that's your pick. There's, emotional and you want to be right in the Derby. Whereas when I handicap the 5th at Parks, I probably looked at it 2 hours ago and, it's all data and make my pick and win or lose. It's easy to move on, but the Derby sticks with you. So yeah, it is
and
tough.
I'm the opposite. I get more sentimental and stuff because, G-Bert will win eventually. I swear. I think I've done this one every time for the past 2.5 years and he still has it.
You see him every day. I'm popping in for the carryovers and such. So no, but yeah, anytime you're talking or working with the horses, there is going to be that attachment, and that makes it tough because things do change in racing. And, I actually gave an example just recently. My pick in 2019 when Jessica at that big trifecta was by my standards. And, he's a good horse, ended up winning some graded stakes as a 4-year-old as well. But Derby week, he missed some training. And I talked about this horse for 2 weeks. I loved his Louisiana Derby. He's going to be 15-1. I'm going to bet. And then things kind of went wrong and they still made the race, but it was pretty clear that he wasn't 100% in terms of what he needed to be to win the Derby. He ran okay, but I wasn't nearly as excited come Derby day. But I talked about him so much, I couldn't give up on him. Like, I'm just not that kind of guy.
I mean, my trifecta in the Derby was really, my logic behind it was a good guy trifecta because it was like Shug and Bill Mott and someone else who's great. So it was like a wholesome trifecta, and with maximum security getting DQ'd, it was a good payout.
It was the wholesome trifecta.
Yeah, it worked out.
I think Mott had first and third. Yeah.
All right, we're going to step aside from the Derby real fast. We're going to talk about Friday's main event, the Kentucky Oaks. And for those who might not tune into horse racing year-round or only really pay attention to the Derby, can you give us a brief explanation of what the Oaks is and how it differs from the Derby?
Yeah, so the Oaks is restricted to fillies only, and it's 1 1/8. So it's an eighth of a mile shorter than the Derby. A lot of similarities otherwise, though. It's for 3-year-olds. You have to be 3. There's a nomination process. There's a point series to qualify. Now, this year only 14 entered, so points didn't come into play. But all that lead up is similar. The biggest difference being it's only for fillies. Now, if a filly wants to try males, that is an option. Fillies are allowed to run in the Kentucky Derby and have, in fact, won it, including my birth year with Genuine Risks. So you look that up, see how old I am. But,
mine too, with winning colors.
Yeah, how about that?
No, wrong. I got the year wrong. Carry on. It was close.
Okay. Well, so fillies can run against males, not the opposite. Not dissimilar to the Hambletonian, which has an Oaks component. But if fillies want to, they can run against males in the Hambletonian. The difference between harness and thoroughbred in that case is the thoroughbred Oaks is an eighth of a mile shorter, whereas harness, of course, almost always the mile. But yeah, the biggest difference is it's for fillies, and they get a blanket of lilies instead of roses. But it's a huge day. There'll be 100,000 people here. A lot of traditions with it as well, and big pools and 14 horses.
The purse is also less, right?
The purse is less. Yeah. It's restricted.
Well, one of the 14 running is actually a Pennsylvania-bred filly. Ashley, do you want to tell us a little bit about Simply Joking?
Yeah, Simply Joking. We're really excited that we have a PA bred. PA breds have historically done pretty well in the Oaks and gotten in. So super excited. I'm not super excited about the post position in 2. And I am like a little bit nervous, but I'm still going to put Simply Joking on my picks. Just as PA bred, hey, got to represent on my ticket.
Jessica, are there any long shots in the Oaks that you want to talk about?
They're I like Graham Motion's horse Fondly a little bit at a very big price. I think Good Cheer might be a free square in this spot. I try to go against the favorite where I can, but I think she's just been way too dominant. But Fondly, 2 for 2. Graham Motion is not the kind of trainer that I think of who takes a big swing in these big spots when he doesn't have the horse behind him. And her Virginia Oaks was, I thought, very impressive. Ed, were you there at Colonial for that?
I was there.
Did it look as good in person?
Yeah, I was actually surprised the speed numbers and figures came back slower than I was expecting because I thought it looked good.
Yeah, I thought watching it, I thought it looked very impressive, and then the numbers did come back a little bit low, which they are.
Second start, she can improve. My long shot's actually Simply Joking. I think there's a lot of speed, so that's sort of going to be her test to deal with that with the inside post. But I've had a lot of respect for talent since the fairgrounds, and totally agree with Jessica. Good Cheer, I think, is next level versus these. And I fashion myself a poker player, and Brad Cox, just reading the visual cues when he speaks, it seems like she's next level, and he's been around some good ones. The confidence is pretty overwhelming from that barn. So like Jessica, I'm not going to try to beat her either, but Simply Joking underneath, still be all right.
And fans should know that there is some serious star power outside of the Oaks on Oaks Day. Torpedo
That's
Anna,
right.
of the year, is running on the undercard. Yeah. And if you have a chance to lay your eyeballs on her in person, I recommend you do.
The Grizzly.
Sure is.
Yeah, and the champion 2-year-old from 2023 is making his 4-year-old debut as well, Fierceness, who was second in the Breeders' Cup. So, yeah, Friday is loaded with some big names.
I just wanted to shout out, because I think 5G has a good chance in the Oaks. Thoughts, Ed, on 5G?
I'm disconnecting from 5G.
You are? Damn.
Not to talk. I mean, I would never talk someone off a horse who's going to be that price. But yeah, I mean, I would bring up the speed, and I definitely don't. I think there's 4 or 5 horses that can be on the front end, and since the one I like best is Simply Joking, I wouldn't want to use another speed horse. Is kind of my thought when there's multiple. So that's why I'm not as enamored. But you might have a chance to play her in the Cotillion. She's a good horse, so she'll be in good races, but the setup here seems tough.
True. I still might put her in my pick for a long shot.
Well, at least I'm honest.
True. We wouldn't expect anything, Ed, less Ed. Yeah. You're always honest.
And what does your trifecta ticket look like for the Oaks?
The Oaks, I'm Good Cheer, Simply Joking, and Take Charge Milady. She finished second in the Ashland to Lacara. Didn't really get the setup that day. I've talked a lot about the pace in the Oaks. She should be closing with Brian Hernandez, who won the race last year with Torpedo Anna, and the Derby with Mystic Dan. So he knows the trip it'll take. I really can't say either one of the 2 in my trifecta are upset threats to Good Cheer, because I love Good Cheer in this spot a ton. But I think that'd be a good trifecta. It's a 14-horse field, so if you get the right one underneath, as long as it's not the second or third choice, which none of us have mentioned Quiet Side, who is the second choice.
She's right in my mix.
Okay. I am going to try to beat her underneath since I like the favorite on top.
So my trifecta, Good Cheer, Fondly, Quiet Side, and if I'm getting liberal and throwing another one in, I'm going to use Quick Kick in there as well. I've kind of chased her all year, who I've really liked. I've kind of maintained that she's a really nice filly. She's just a little inconsistent, but for me, I want to put a 4th horse in there, and it was between her and Lacara, and I think pace-wise they're so similar, so Quick Kick is one that I've just, with a little bit of gut instinct, right? She's one that I just thought is a little bit more all year.
Well, in a 14-horse field, you get her in there, it doesn't matter if you have the favorite. You're gonna do all right, so.
And Quiet Side she's the kind of horse you're either, I think you go really all in on or all against. And I think she gets a little bit overbet. Johnny Ortiz, everyone likes him. I think she just has a lot of rooting interest behind her.
Yeah.
She's a little overbet.
No, and that's the other part of the emotion question. Like, we know these trainers and jockeys too. And like Leper, who's my favorite jockey, and he's on the horse in the Derby I give the least amount of chance to. So a lot of times you're like, oh man, you'd be happy if he wins, but you're going to lose.
Well, I have Good Cheer. I have to go with I just think she's an amazing horse, and she makes the Oaks, and I'm gonna go Simply Joking, and you're not talking me off. I'm staying with 5G.
Good.
I have like a good instinct. I have a good feeling. That's the feeling.
I hope you tell me I told you so if she does well.
Okay, I'm gonna hope. We'll see.
All right, let's shift to the big one, the 151st Kentucky Derby. Ed, what are your initial thoughts on this year's field? Is there a standout? Is it kind of wide open, or what are you thinking?
I do think journalism is a stand-ish out. It seems funny not to say he's to the level of, say, Smarty Jones or Barbaro, because he's going to be actually a shorter price than either of those two horses were when they were so impressive in their derbies. But I think he's earned the favoritism mantle. And for me, after him, I don't have really a strong conviction in sort of the next choices: Sandman, Sovereignty, Rodriguez, maybe Burnham Square. They're all going to vie for second favoritism, but I do think there's a pretty wide gap between any of them and journalism. So I think this is the first time in my life I've picked the favorite in both the Oaks and Derby, but I do think journalism is just better than these.
Well, I think this is such an interesting Derby because there are so many new faces here. And last year we saw a trainer and a jockey win their first Kentucky Derby together with Kenny and Brian Hernandez. And it's so nice to see some folks besides the usual suspects with legitimate contenders. This may be a little bit sentimental of me, but I have a big long shot pick here, and that's Chunk of Gold. I thought Jared Loveberry showed with 2 fills that he can hold his own with the best of the best. And with just a little more luck, I think they could have had a really big day that day. And Chunk of Gold, I loved in the Louisiana Derby. I also liked Tistastic, and he's one I'm kind of carrying over to. I think the Louisiana Derby really shaped up to be a good race this year. Chunk of Gold had everything go wrong, and the way he ran on showed me that he should have no problem navigating some issues through a 20-horse field, because there's inevitably going to be a check, a bump, something that does not go to plan. And he showed he can persevere throughout that. I love seeing folks like Jared Loveberry get a chance on the biggest stage. He's a jockey who's worked really hard throughout Chicago, Kentucky, making the most out of every opportunity. So I'm rooting hard for the Loveberries. I like Chunk of Gold. I love him at the big price that he's going to be. And Sovereignty has been my pick kind of along the way, so I'm not getting off of that either.
Ashley, who do you have?
For my long shot, I've been on the fence.
Maybe just who do you like?
Who do I like?
Yeah.
Well, I think journalism is going. I think is going to. I haven't heard more buzz about a horse really since American Pharoah. So I think everyone's really rooting for him. But I don't want to count out some of the Curlington sired horses and Bob Baffert. So I don't know. I still don't really have my picks. I'm on the fence. I think it's going to be journalism. Birmingham Squared is definitely on there too. I'm a mess this year. I'm just like throwing it up in the air.
There's a ton of talent. It's hard.
It is. It's just like such a huge field, and I hate giving picks because this isn't like really my thing, but I like to bet on it, and it's fun. Like I'm definitely not on the Ed and Jessica level of handicapping, but
well, everyone also has like certain numbers they bet for sentimental reasons. Like I'll tell you, for every big race, like I'm sure you do this too, or you have something that. But for every like big racing day, I spend all my time studying and handicapping, and I'll do my logical selections. But then I'll also bet a 3-7 exacta and a 3-7 double in the Derby or in the Oaks in honor of my mentor from Suffolk Downs, who passed away many years ago. 3-7 were his numbers, so I always bet them on big days for him. And one of these days they'll come in a big way. But we have our sentimental ways of wagering too, as well as our logical ones. So there's a way for everyone to get involved.
I think I'm definitely going to throw Sandman in there too, just because, I don't know, the whole influencer thing and everything America's Best Racing has done with bringing in the influencers. And I think it's been great what Graham has done for our sport. So I'm excited for him. I know he's the heavy favorite. He's a Tappet, and I like Tappet.
I don't think Sandman will be the heavy favorite. I think he'll get some attention, but I think journalism will
be
take
7-1.
Yeah, I think, and that goes to the conversation of value, right? Like 7-1 on Sandman, is it a value? My only concern with him, and I've liked him throughout as well, and I love Mark Cassie, but boy, does he have a Tappet brain. He's the one who gets a little goofy. He gets a little awkward. He looks around a little bit. And if there's any day where there's going to be so much environment and so much circumstance going on, he's going to have to focus.
Yep. Well, what Jessica said, and it's a good segue to my long shot, is the Derby is the only race I can bet the day I was born, which is the 19th. And normally, for whatever reason, the number 19 hasn't had the best of horses. But this year it's Chunk of Gold. And he is he's actually the horse I'm most excited about betting, just because if he hits the trifecta with any other horse I like, it should be a good day. He's going to be 40-1. And for all the reasons Jessica stated, he, to me, is one of the overlays in the group. I think he's an extremely live long shot, and I'm going to play him accordingly with the favorite.
Jessica, I want to draw on your Jockey Insight a little bit. You've called a lot of races. How big of a factor is rider experience in a race like the Kentucky Derby?
I think at this level, right, these guys are all professional athletes, and I'm sure some will have some butterflies in the post parade. They'll have some big feelings when they hear My Old Kentucky Home for the first time. But if you are routinely riding in major races, it's a big race with a big field, but it is just another race. Brian Hernandez showed last year that if you have the horse and if you can work out the trip and if you're brave enough to come up the rail, then you can find your way to the winner's circle. And again, we often see the same folks in the winner's circle time after time again, but you're only as good as the horse you're riding. And with the right horse on the right day, I think any of these guys has a chance.
Yeah, I mean, when Smarty Jones won, it was a jockey who had never run in the Derby before. And Mario Gutierrez, he won with his first mount. So, I actually think first-time trainer is more of a liability because they have weeks to think about and obsess and, make decisions that, and I've heard Simon Bray talk on the FanDuel show, and he had a long shot with his only Derby starter, but you could tell he's very honest about the experience and he was nervous, and it just seems to me that the trainers maybe could tweak in the wrong direction. I agree with Jessica. The jockeys are such pros and they know what to do when they get on the track. And I never hold it against a horse if it's a first time rider.
No, unless it's a ride. I mean, there are certain riders that I would not use.
That's right. And I feel that way about that same rider in a, N1X.
Today, of course, there are some riders that I will not use, that I tried not to use. And so I think there's just, regardless of whether they're in a $10,000 maiden claiming race or the Kentucky Derby, I'm good. But
that's right.
All right, Ed, walk us through your final trifecta ticket.
All right. Well, as I noted, journalism is sort of the key among the logical horses. Chunk of Gold, definitely the long shot. I like best, really excited about his chances. And then I have to say, I mean, I hate the qualifier, but if he gets in, I can't not use the horse that almost beat journalism last time at probably 3 or 4 times the price. That's number 21 Baeza. So pay attention to scratches. He would definitely be in the mix. But if he doesn't, Rodriguez is my third selection. Very similar to Simply Joking in the Oaks. I do think there's a lot of speed in here, so that could be compromising. But if anyone's going to go on with it and see the mile and a quarter through on or near the front end, I think it'll be Rodriguez. So I'll put him in my third spot. And I think he's going to be 15-1. So not overbet by Bob's standards.
Jessica, what about your ticket? What's it looking like?
Chunk of Gold, Sovereignty. Sandman, I think, will run very well, but will kind of do something to get himself third or fourth, and Burn Square.
I definitely think journalism. I like. All right, we're gonna do it. Rodriguez is on my ticket. I just can look. I have Rodriguez, and I don't know. Now you have Birmingham Square. I'm thinking Birmingham Square. I'm gonna jump off of Sandman. I think you're right. I think he runs fourth.
There you have it.
All right, Ed, I'm just going to ask you because you're on site. Is there any exotic bet going on there that you're really excited about?
Oaks and Derby is the 2 days a year at Churchill. They do the $1 superfecta minimum instead of 10 cents. So you have to be judicious. It's definitely at the $1 minimum with big fields. You can't look to play every race, but where you do have a strong opinion, the dollar minimum really does help take the payouts to another level versus the dime. So that's always a fun one. And then they also do the Oaks Derby double. There's a couple other 2-day bets, but for any level player, to me, that Oaks Derby double is just, it's among the 2 biggest races of the year. You get to play a double. I'm not overly sexy in my picks this year with the 2 chalk, but I think if it pays $10 for $1, that to me is value. So I'm going to watch the Will Pays. And if it's getting over bet, Chunk of Gold would be the horse I use in the Derby to try to spice things up in the Oaks Derby double.
All right, well, that is a wrap on this special Hot to Trot episode, Kentucky Derby edition. I want to thank Ashley, Jessica, and Ed for joining me. This has been very informative and a lot of fun for someone like me who's not really that experienced with thoroughbred racing, but, continuing to learn and listen to industry professionals who know what they're talking about. So it's been very helpful. And for those of you who are watching, whether you're heading to the racetrack or throwing a party, making some big bets, I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday and Saturday. Don't forget that Pennsylvania is hosting some pretty fun events. PA Racing has a lot going on. Check us out on our website to see what track is starting when and what they're holding. Let us know your picks. Let us know what you're doing, and enjoy your weekend. See ya.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to the Standardbred Breeders of Pennsylvania for sponsoring Hot to Trot. We'll see you next time.